All right, we're back. And we are joined by Ray Brownell, who a lot of times we just call our local sports agent, but he is an agent with JR Sports Enterprises. If an NFL player is in the capital region, you're likely to see Ray right there with them. He is most likely the guy who brought them into town to sign some autographs, take some pictures, have a dinner. A lot of times it's obviously for a charitable reason. So outside of representing NFL players, Ray and his partner J.R. Rickard do a lot of good work in bringing players into the region to help local charities out. Ray, thanks for coming on with us.
No, thank you.
You're always good to us. So let's start with Hakeem Nicks. John wants to know, and he's the boss, so we might as well start there. What is Nicks' situation recovering from the foot injury? Will we see him here in Albany this summer?
Let's take those in reverse order.
Okay.
All right. Will we see Hakeem Nicks in Albany this summer? John, I can assure you, yes, we will see Hakeem Nicks in Albany this summer. Now, that being said, will we see him on the field taking reps? No, we will not. So you'll see him on the sidelines with the jugs machine, riding the bike, whatever. He's coming along just fine. The timetable for the injury rehab is going great. He might be slightly ahead, but again, you don't want to push that. I mean, he's not a player who you have to worry about. He's not a fringe roster player. I mean, they know what they've gotten him. He's been a little banged up over time, but you know what you get when he's out on the field. So they're not going to rush him back by any stretch.
And we have to remember the Giants training camp here at UAlbany this summer is a shortened camp. They're only going to be here for 14 practices. I think you said a total of 18 days. So if you do want to see the Giants, make sure you make it a point to be there because they'll be here and gone in almost a blink of an eye. So definitely enjoy them while they're here.
Well, remember, too, there's no double sessions anymore.
Right.
Those are eliminated in the CBA. So you have single practices, and they're all at the same time, which you go back to prior years. Team might practice 9 in the morning till 11 and take some time off, come back 6 to 8. They might do 1 to 3 one day. They might do just 9 to 11. The schedule was so sporadic. But now it's 1 to 3 every day that they're there. So you know specifically the timing to be there and when. And there's, I think, 4 off days scattered in there, plus 2 preseason games that they'll be traveling for as well. So I don't know how I feel about all this. I need to see an actual real season. I mean, last year coming out of the lockout was an abbreviated preseason, so you couldn't get a real sense of what was going on. This year, I think we'll have a much better sense of the good and the bad of what the CBA, negotiations and givebacks and give and take allowed for. And I'm really curious to see how it's going to affect continuity of play, how it's going to affect conditioning, how it's going to affect player preparation, how it's going to affect these communities like Albany that for so long have relied and prided themselves on being home for training camp. So it's going to be very interesting.
And this could be the last year we see the Giants. Obviously have that great brand new facility down at the Meadowlands, the Timex Performance Center. So this could be the last chance to see the Giants at UAlbany. Ray, who are some names on this Giants roster you think will make themselves, maybe not household names, but will really impress people while they're here? I always just kind of think back to 2 years ago, and Victor Cruz just busted onto the scene. And then he didn't have such a shabby preseason game against the Jets either, which helped. But any names, they don't have to be rookies, but any names that I think people will sort of be taken back by?
Well, I'm going to give you 3. 2 of them are rookies, and one is not a veteran per se, but he's returning for his second year. And I really like Wilson, the running back, and I really think that he's going to give them a dimension that they haven't had in a long time. I'm really interested to see how they use him, how what kind of sets that they're featuring him in, and how much playing time he's going to get. So I'm really very interested to see him. And I think he's going to burst onto the scene in great ways for the Giants and give them some presence that they haven't necessarily had, some consistent presence that they haven't had for a long time from that position. You and I were talking a little bit about the embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. Ruben Randall is a young man who has always impressed me at LSU. I know he struggled at times, but I think on the whole, he's the kind of player who's a difference maker. So now you've got some guys at that position for the Giants who can really make big plays. And you put Cruz, Nix, and Randall. If you get something out of Ramses Barden, you got Dominic Hickson coming back. You've got some really deep, talented players at that position. I think people are going to really like what they see out of Ruben Randall. And here's a guy who didn't play much last year. He was hurt a bit and kind of struggled with the system. But I think you're going to get a lot more out of him in this second year, and that's Prince Mufamara. And I think you're going to see what you saw at Nebraska out of him this year. I think you give him last year the mulligan, and he's going to come out this year. And that's an area of concern for the Giants is the defensive backfield. And I think he's going to really strengthen that in some incredible ways for the Giants. And Chase Blackbird's another guy who I really like. They didn't bring him back till halfway through last season, and look what he did in half a season in the march to the Super Bowl. So I know I've heard they've anointed him as the starter. I hope that's true because I think he's a really underrated player who brings a lot to the defense and a lot to that position. So there's four guys that I really be paying a lot of attention to. I think they're going to really burst onto the scene at camp.
And to the defensive backfield, it'll be interesting to see how Terrell Thomas comes back from his preseason injury last year. That could give them three really solid cornerbacks, which in that division, and now the way the NFC has gotten so pass heavy, that would be big. Obviously, the pass rush, no problem there. Let's talk about the Jets. You being a Dolphins fan, you know Tony Sparano and you know his system really well. Let's forget about the wild card. Let's talk about this so-called return to smash mouth football. First of all, the Jets have a different offensive line than we saw when Thomas Jones has had his really big years with the Jets. Is this line good enough to be a run-first and run-heavy offense? And secondly, is Sean Green really the guy they can hand it to 25 times a game?
Well, I'll tell you, Tony Sparano really got short thrift in Miami. And he's a smart offensive mind. And he deserved better than he got in Miami. And I say that not just as a Dolphins fan, but as a football fan, because he's one of the nicest guys in the National Football League. And, obviously he had two kids come through the Albany system, well known to some people in this community, just a really terrific guy. And I was saddened the way it ended for him in Miami. I'm even more saddened that he ended up with the Jets as a Dolphins fan. But that being said, he's a guy who's going to transform that offensive approach in New York. And, for the last 3 years, they've really relied more. They've asked Mark Sanchez to do more than I think he's capable of doing. And that's not a knock on Sanchez, that's just an observation. I don't think they're going to, assuming he's still with them, I don't think that they're going to ask him to do as much, which means they're going to rely on the run game. Is Sean Green the answer? I don't know. I think we're going to find out pretty quickly. I think that offensive line is going to be retooled a little bit to Sparano's liking, so they can grind the ball, so they can get the yards that they need, which again will take some of that pressure off of Sanchez or Tebow or whoever the quarterback's going to be. I don't know if it'll all happen this year. I think that Rex Ryan had a tremendous amount of respect for Tony Sparano, having had the game plan against him, and those Dolphins-Jets games, if nothing else, were always entertaining, even if they didn't go the Dolphins' way all the time. But when you're trying to make chicken salad out of chicken poop, it's kind of hard sometimes to get what you want. But all of that being said, Sparano's the right guy for the job in New York, as much as it hurts to say that. And maybe not this year you're going to get exactly the full complement of his approach. It might take a year to really get that going. I think they got to get a couple more bodies on the offensive line that are more to his liking. And I really think this is a watershed year for Sean Green. I mean, you're going to find out now very quickly, is he the guy? Is he capable of being a number one guy? I think he has it in him. I just don't know if the work ethic is there, the commitment is there, because that's been some of the knock on him to this point.
And if he isn't, there aren't a lot of options behind him. So it'll be interesting to see how long they stay with him, or even how long they pull the plug.
I'm going to tell you something. Watch. There's a running back right now, a free agent who's unsigned, and for the life of me, I can't believe this guy's not on a roster somewhere. That's Cedric Benson. And watch because if camp starts and the running back position is not what they're hoping for, don't be surprised, assuming he's still out there, that the Jets don't make a play for Seth Benson. He's a good between the tackles runner. Did some good things in Cincinnati, kind of resurrected his career. Probably wasn't the greatest fit in Chicago, and I think he did some things to kind of wear out his welcome there, but certainly I think rehabilitated himself well in Cincinnati, and for the life of me, I can't believe he's still out there. I know the Raiders have some interest in him, I've heard, but don't be surprised if the Jets make a move there, because filling a position like that can't hurt with a guy like Benson, especially with the way they want to move that offense.
Just off the top of my head, what does Ryan Grant have left in the tank? How viable of an option is he as an NFL running back still?
Well, I think he can give you some carries. I don't, you look at the veterans that are out there, Benson, Grant. I mean, if I'm looking at those two, I'm going to take Seth Benson over Ryan Grant.
Okay.
Personally, I don't know that he's got as much left in the tank. I think he's good for some carries. I think he'll be a change of pace for you. He's not a guy who can come in and start 8 or 9 games for you. I don't think anymore. Seth Benson's a guy who can still start and win football games for you. But I think given the choice of those two, you lean toward Benson.
The shelf life of an NFL running back is, Ryan Grant, back-to-back 1,200-yard seasons, and boom, he popped his Achilles, which certainly didn't help. He's just not the same guy after that. You're on the radio with us tomorrow morning, and by us, I say myself and Zach By, and we may ask you this same question tomorrow because it'll probably be maybe the last time we get to talk to you on the radio before the season starts. Is it a good possibility that the Jets are really the third best team in this division, behind the Patriots, and I'm throwing the Bills up there?
I think that aside from the Patriots, I think conceivably you could have 3 teams that are jockeying for the second spot. If the Jets don't get the production offensively that they need early in the season and they struggle, that will affect them for an entire season, because this is a young team. Is not very mentally strong. I know that's one of the things that challenges Rex Ryan and vexes him, really, because he is so mentally strong and so crazy, and they're so not. And I know that really he hasn't figured out the pulse of that and how to master that with them and overcome that. So I know that that's a challenge for him. I think, and let me take my Dolphins, I'm a fan hat off and try to be objective. I don't think the Dolphins are as bad as people think.
I think they have a really good defense.
They do have a good defense, and they're switching to a 4-3 consistently. You've got, why am I blanking on his name? Middle linebacker there, came from Arizona.
Carlos Dansby.
Carlos Dansby. Had a great year last year. You got our guy Kevin Burnett out there at linebacker. I mean, they're really solid. Defensive line rotation that does real well. I look for big things out of Jared Odrick from Penn State. I know you've talked about Penn State all day today. In the secondary, they're a little suspect. They need some consistent safety play. I think they're going to get it. But again, you can make a secondary look good, and you make it look bad based on pass rush. So if they get the pass rush, they'll be okay. Offensively, listen, and I think you and I talked about this before. Matt Moore had great stats last year in half a season. You take that across the whole season, he's one of the top 5-6 quarterbacks in the league. Nobody's talking about that. Now you got to look at the tailback position. Reggie Bush, Daniel Thomas. They drafted Lamar Miller out of Miami. Watch for him.
How is that going to shake out? Obviously, Bush has his spot in that offense. Daniel Thomas was underwhelming last year. He had hamstring injuries that will hamper any running back. But then when you see them pick a guy like Lamar Miller, now you start to wonder about their belief in a guy like Daniel Thomas.
Right, absolutely. That's a clear message to Daniel Thomas. Like, you got to get with the program and do it fast. I think you'll see Thomas in third down situations. I think you'll see Lamar Miller, Reggie Bush splitting carries. You may, by the mid-season, see Lamar carrying the ball more than Reggie, and then them using Reggie in some creative ways. Scat back, maybe some... kind of like Kansas City uses Dexter McCluster. He's a playmaker. You don't get the ball in his hands. You got to do whatever it takes. I think Matt Moore wins the job to start the season. I think Tannehill is 3. I think Garrard is 2. This is not as bad a team as people are saying. Buffalo, listen, they're going to be tough to score on. Okay, they're going to win games 7-6, 7-3. I'm worried about the offense. If they turn the ball over consistently and you put your defense in bad spots, You know, that's not good. This is a big year for Ryan Fitzpatrick. He got his money last year. You know, every agent's dream, you get your quarterback paid. Well, now you have an obligation to fulfill that. He did not do very well to end the season last year. I think part of that was him. I think part of that was, you know, what was around him. Can he perform to the level of his ability this year? If he does, if they get good offensive production, the defense is going to be rock solid. They could finish second in the division. So, I mean, I really think you can make a case for the Jets. You can make a case for Buffalo. I think you can make a maybe a little bit longer odds case for the Dolphins to finish as runners up to the Patriots. Now, watch all this happen and the Patriots finish fourth, and we're sitting here again saying, what the heck just happened? But I think clearly the Patriots are the class of the division still.
That would be the NFL if it ended up that way. Last thing, Ray, and I'll let you go, and I know we'll have you on. Again, Ray is on Fox Sports 980 tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock with us. Whose seat is going to be hotter this season? Whose fan base will react more quickly to a negative start? Is Chan Gailey on a hotter seat than Rex Ryan, given what they've done in free agency this year?
I think that seat in New York was always hot. You know, and if they get off to a really slow start,
I mean, let's say they start 2-4.
They start 2-4. I mean, there's going to be calls for his head. Will it happen? I don't know. I mean, I know him and Tannenbaum are attached at the hip, and you know, I know Mike believes in Rex and his system and what he's trying to do. 2-4 is a tough start, especially when, you know, you've been to the AFC Championship 2 of the last 3 years, okay, with a rookie quarterback and a second-year quarterback. So there's expectations in that time. I think that defense is getting a little bit longer in the tooth. I don't know if they're going to be as good as advertised, and that's his specialty. You know, he brought in Sperano so he can focus on the defense. And we're going to really see just how that goes. 2-4 would be trouble for him. 2-4 for Chan Gailey. I don't know that there's calls for his head at that point. If Buffalo starts, you know, Buffalo's at the midway point, and they're 2-6. Yeah, there could be a move there, and that's too bad. You know, listen, Chan Gailey's a good guy. Chan Gailey's a good coach. I don't think he's a great head coach. He's a good coach. He's a great offensive mind. Sure. I mean, he's a guy who's always taken whatever pieces he's had and made something out of it. And I'm sure it frustrates him to some degree that he hasn't been able to do that with consistency in Buffalo. I don't think he's got to have a really bad start, I think, to feel the wagons circling. I just, you know, 2-6 might be it. I think the seat's a little bit warmer under Rex right now.
I lied. I have one more question for you, and this is about Darrelle Revis. Again, hinting that he may not be there at camp. Not happy with his contract situation. You know, this is the problem. Guys get really good contracts at the time, and then the market passes them by. So Revis, again, you know, he's not the highest paid guy anymore at that position, and he wants to be. What is the likelihood that the Jets are going to go through this all over again like they did 2 years ago with Revis?
When you push to get a renegotiation like he and his people did 2 years ago, you make sacrifices in a contract to get some things up front. He got significant upfront money. In order to achieve that, he made some concessions at the back end of the deal. Well, guess what? The calendars have turned, and we're at the back end of that deal now. And all of a sudden, what seemed very palatable only a few short years ago now doesn't feel very good at all. So, you know, as agents, this is one of the toughest things to deal with players, because in some ways you want to get as much as you can up front, because, you know, this is a sport. It's a violent sport. It's a sport where one day you're there, the next day you're gone, and there's no guarantees in NFL contracts. You know, NBA contracts are guaranteed. I mean, Brooke Lopez just signed some obscene contract in
4 years. 4 years, $60 million.
Yeah. What has he done? How many games did he play this year?
5.
That's guaranteed money.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I wish I was the guy negotiating that deal, because then you and I would be going somewhere.
We wouldn't be here, right? Yeah, right.
So, but NFL deals aren't guaranteed like that. So you go for as much money up front as you can get, and much money guaranteed as you can get, and then you run the risk, though, now, because now he is being being paid less than other guys, and he's clearly more toward the top of his position than some of these other guys are.
Like Brandon Carr just signed a big deal this offseason, and he's past Revis. Cortland Finnegan got a big deal. These are guys who I would say are not in the Darrell Revis class. They didn't have an island named after them. So
Carr's a good player.
Sure.
Especially for a kid who went to Grand Valley State. Finnegan's a good player.
Yep.
Another small school guy too, Court Finnegan. But this is the challenge. I think I don't know how the Jets are going to approach this, but I'm going to give you what my gut tells me. They're going to go to Cortland, and there'll be no Darrell Revis. And I think the Jets are going to wait it out. I think they're going to come back and say, and this is what the risk you run as an agent. When you do deals like this, they're going to go to and say to his people, look, we did what you wanted a few years ago. Okay? You knew, we went over this. You knew this was a danger. Okay? We're not renegotiating this now. And I think it's going to cause a big problem. And I think there's going to be a huge standoff. And it's going to be very interesting to see who blinks first. You look at a guy like Ed Reed. Here's another guy, a tremendous player at his position. Perhaps the best in the league at his position. Not happy with his deal. Okay? He's currently not represented by an agent, but has been talking to some friends of yours and about representation. But, he had some of the same issue. He signed his last renegotiation. He got more money up front. He got what he wanted at the time. But now he's scheduled to make 7.5, I think, this year. Which, listen,
yeah, right.
Believe me, I understand. It's hard to feel bad for a guy who's only making $7.5 million. I understand that.
Right.
In his mind, though,
right, he feels he's at the top of his profession. He wants to be paid like it.
Right, and this is going to be another great injury. He's not going to go to camp either. I mean, you watch all of these contract holdout storylines go on because, the owners have made it very clear that they are retaking control of this game, and it will not surprise me. Fortunately, we're not in a position where we have anybody that we have these issues with, but I'm watching this very carefully because we may in the not too distant future. And you watch, because I really truly believe the owners are going to say, hey, we control this game. You want to sit, sit. And it's not going to surprise me if both those holdouts, Revis and Reed, go well into the preseason and possibly even into the regular season.
Ray Brownell of JR Sports Enterprises back on the radio with us, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I love the agent insight. I want to ask you more about the Revis situation tomorrow on the radio. Thanks, man.
You got it. Thank you.